Hello students, this is Mrs. Sonal Patil. We were studying the chapter 2, that is biological classification, in which in the last class we have stopped with the classification of kingdom Monera. So in the last class we studied about kingdom Monera, its characters, and then we have studied about its classification. Today we will begin with the kingdom Protista. Kingdom Protista is the kingdom of unicellular and colonial eukaryotes. However, its boundaries are not well defined. What may be a protestant, photosynthetic protestant to one biologist may be a plant to another. Coming to the characters of Protista, they are aquatic, found in fresh or marine water bodies. Secondly, they are eukaryotic, unicellular organisms. Eukaryotic means what? They have well defined nucleus, and because of which they are called as eukaryotic. Cell wall made up of pellicle, cellulose or shell. Being eukaryotes, the protestant cell body contains a well defined nucleus and other membrane bound organelles. So cell organelles which are membrane bound are present, as well as they have a well defined nucleus. They move by means of flagella or cilia. So locomotion here is by means of flagella or cilia. They may be photosynthetic also. Protistants reproduce asexually and by sexual methods. Asexually, they will reproduce by means of binary fission, multiple fission, budding, sporulation and cyst formation, whereas sexual reproduction occurs by the formation of gametes of different types. So different types of gametes are being formed here in protistants. Most of the free living protistants are aquatic, living in both freshwater and sea. They commonly float on the surface of water as plankton. Okay, so they are floating on the surface of the water as a plankton. So these were the characteristic features of kingdom Protista. Protists can be broadly classified into following groups. So they are classified into following groups. Firstly, chrysophytes. This group includes diatoms and golden algae. They are found in freshwater as well as marine environments. They are microscopic and float passively in water currents. So they are plankton. Most of them are photosynthetic. In diatoms have a peculiar feature. Like in diatoms, the cell wall forms a thin overlapping shell which fits together as in soap box. So how the soap box gets fit, the cover gets fit into each other, in that manner only diatoms are having cell walls which get fit into each other, which are made up of silica. So these cell walls are embedded with silica and thus the walls are indestructible. Thus diatoms have left behind large amount of cell wall deposits in their habitat, and because of which they are indestructible, they have left behind large amount of cell wall deposits, and this accumulation over billions of years is referred to as diatomaceous earth. A very important question for 1 mark. Being gritty, this soil is used in polishing, filtration of oils and syrups. Diatoms are chief producers in the oceans. So these were the chrysophytes. Remember, chrysophytes, they include diatoms and golden algae found in freshwater as well as marine waters. They are floating passively on the surface of the water. Most of them are photosynthetic, and I told you diatoms are having overlapping shells made up of silica which are indestructible, and since their deposition over billions of years, they have formed what is called as diatomaceous earth. So these points you should remember under chrysophytes. Coming to dinoflagellates. These organisms are mostly marine and photosynthetic. They appear yellow, green, brown, blue or red depending on the main pigment present in their cells. So depending upon the main pigment present in them, They exhibit different colors. The cell wall has stiff cellulose plates on the outer surface. Most of them have two flagella. One lies longitudinally and other transversely in a furrow between the wall plates. Very often, red dinoflagellates, example gonolox, under such rapid multiplication, it will undergo such a rapid multiplication that make the sea appear red. So it multiplies at a much faster rate, which will make the sea appear red, which has been shown over here. Toxins released by such large numbers may even kill other marine animals such as fishes. So this, that is red dinoflagellate, is undergoing rapid multiplication, which is making the sea appear red, and the toxins which are released by them may even kill other marine animals such as fishes. So these are the dinoflagellates which are appearing, which are exhibiting different colors because of the pigment present in them, and they're mostly, remember, they're mostly marine. So these were the characters of dinoflagellates. Coming to the next is euglenoids. Majority of them are freshwater organisms found in stagnant water. Instead of a cell wall, they have a protein-rich layer called pellicle. They're having a protein-rich layer called as pellicle, which makes their body flexible. They have two flagellae, a short and a long one. Though they are photosynthetic in presence of light, in the absence of light, they behave like heterotrophs by predating on other smaller organisms. So in the presence of light, they are photosynthetic. In the absence of light, they are dependent on the other organism. That is nothing but they are heterotrophs. Interestingly, the pigments of euglenoids are identical to those pigments present in higher plants. So example for euglenoids is euglena. So euglenoids include the members which are majority, they are freshwater, they are found in the stagnant waters. Instead of cell wall, they have a protein rich layer called as pellicle, which makes them flexible. They have two flagella, a short and a long. They are photosynthetic in the presence of sunlight, whereas in the absence of sunlight they behave as heterotrophs. So these were the characters of euglenoids. Coming to the next one are the slime molds. Slime molds are saprophytic protists. Depending upon the dead and decaying matter, the body moves along decaying twigs and leaves, engulfing organic material. Under suitable conditions, they form an aggregation called plasmodium, which may grow and spread over several feet. During unfavorable conditions, the plasmodium differentiates and forms fruiting bodies bearing spores at their tips. The spores possess true walls. They are extremely resistant and survive for many years. Even under adverse conditions, the spores are dispersed by air currents. So these slime molds are saprophytic protists. They are moving along the decaying twigs. They engulf organic material. Under suitable conditions, they aggregate and form what is called as plasmodium, which may grow and spread over several feet. Under unfavorable condition, the plasmodium differentiates and forms fruiting bodies bearing the spores. So these were the slime molds. So that was about the classification of protists. So firstly, it is classified into chrysophytes, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds, and the last one is protozoans. All protozoans are heterotrophs, depend upon the other organisms and live as predators or parasites. They are believed to be primitive relatives of animals. There are four major groups of protozoans. Firstly, amoeboid protozoans. These amoeboid protozoans, the name itself tells, amoeba. These are amoeba-like organisms, protozoans. Example is amoeba here for amoeboid protozoans. These organisms live in freshwater, seawater or moist soil. They move and capture their prey by putting out pseudopodia. So they put the false feet called a pseudopodia as in case of amoeba. Marine forms have silica shells on their surface. Some of them, such as ant amoeba, are parasites. So these are amoeboid protozoans. Coming to the next, flagellated protozoans. Flagellated, they possess flagella. The members of this group are either free living or parasitic. They have flagella. The parasitic forms cause diseases such as sleeping sickness. Example is trypanosoma. So these flagellated protozoans cause diseases such as sleeping sickness, and they possess flagella, and because of which they are named as flagellated protozoans. Coming to the next one is ciliated protozoans. These are aquatic, actively moving organisms because of the presence of thousands of cilia. So here the body of the ciliated protozoans is covered by cilia. They have a cavity that opens to the outside of the cell surface. The coordinated movement of rows of cilia causes the water laden with food to be steered into the gullet. Example is paramecium. So paramecium is the example for ciliated protozoans. So here the protozoans are, the body is covered by cilia. The last one is sporozoans. This includes diverse organisms that have an infectious spore-like stage in their life cycle. The most notorious is Plasmodium, which causes malaria, a disease which has a staggering effect on human population. So sporozoans are nothing but they include the diverse organisms that have an infectious spore-like stage in their life cycle. So these were the classification of or the groups coming under protozoans: amoeboid protozoans, flagellated protozoans, ciliated protozoans, and sporozoans. This completes the classification of kingdom Protista. Coming to the next kingdom, kingdom fungi. Now this kingdom fungi, characteristic features of kingdom fungi says that these are eukaryotic non-chlorophyllous organisms. So these fungal members are simple, they are non-vascular, they are non-chlorophyllous, heterotrophic, spore-producing eukaryotes. They are. Secondly, the body of fungus is called as mycelium, which is made up of mass of hyphae. So the body of the fungus is called as mycelium, which is made up of mass of hyphae, and these hyphae may be septate or aseptate and cenocytic. So they may be, the hyphae may be septate or aseptate and they are cenocytic. In others, the hyphae are multicellular and septate. Cell wall is made up of chitin here. Stored food is usually glycogen. So the stored food is in the form of glycogen here, and the cell wall is made up of chitin. Most fungi are heterotrophic and absorb soluble organic matter from dead substrates and hence are called as saprophytes. Those that depend on living plants and animals are called parasites. They can also live as symbionts in association with algae as lichens and with roots of higher plants as mycorrhiza. So symbionts are nothing but, example they have given as lichen. Lichen is nothing but it is a combination of algae and fungi, where the algae and fungi are living in such a relationship there in which both are benefited, and because of which they are called as symbionts, or they are associated with the higher plants which is called as mycorrhiza. It reproduces vegetatively by fragmentation, fission, budding, asexually by motile spores called as zoospores and non-motile spores called as aplanospores. And sexually, they reproduce by producing oospores or ascospores and Basidiospores. The various spores are produced in distinct structures called fruiting bodies. So fruiting bodies are produced in which these spores are produced. So these were the characters of kingdom fungi. Again, important question for 5 marks. Remember the characters of the kingdom. Some unicellular fungi, example yeast, are used to make bread and beer. Other fungi cause diseases in plants and animals, like wheat rust causing Puccinia is an important example. Some are the source of antibiotics, example penicillium. So these are the examples for the fungal members which are causing the diseases. The sexual cycle involves the following 3 steps. Sexual cycle in fungal members includes 3 steps. Firstly, the fusion of protoplasm between two motile or non-motile gametes called plasmogamy. Secondly, fusion of two nuclei called karyogamy. So first, fusion of protoplasm between two motile or non-motile gametes is called as plasmogamy. Fusion of two nuclei called karyogamy, and finally meiosis in the zygote resulting in haploid spores. So again important, plasmogamy, karyogamy may be asked. When a fungus reproduces sexually, two haploid hyphae of compatible mating types come together and fuse. In some fungi, the fusion of two haploid cells immediately results in diploid cells. However, in other fungi, an intervening dikaryotic stage occurs. Such a condition is called a dikaryon, and the phase is called dikaryophase of fungus. Later, the parental nuclei fuse and the cells become diploid. The fungi form fruiting bodies in which reduction division occurs, leading to the formation of haploid spores. So these were the steps which are involved in the sexual cycle of fungi, that is fusion of protoplasm between motile and the non-motile gametes, then fusion of nuclei for the meiosis in the zygote. The morphology of mycelium, mode of spore formation and fruiting bodies form the basis for the division of kingdom into various classes. So it is divided into various classes. The first one is phycomycetes. Members of phycomycetes are found in aquatic habitats and on decaying wood in moist and damp places, or as obligate parasites on plants. The mycelium here is aseptate and cenocytic. Asexual reproduction takes place by zoospores or by aplanospores. These spores are endogenously produced in sporangium. A zygospore is formed by fusion of two gametes, and these gametes are similar in morphology or they may be dissimilar. Some examples are mucus. Mucor is there, rhizopus and albugo are the examples for phycomycetes. Next, coming to the next class is ascomycetes. Commonly, these ascomycetes are called as sac fungi. The ascomycetes are mostly multicellular, example penicillium, or rarely unicellular, example yeast. They are saprophytic, decomposers, parasitic, or coprophilous, means what, growing on the dung. Mycelium is branched and septate here. The asexual spores are conidia, produced exogenously on special mycelium called conidiophores. So conidia are produced on the special structure called as conidiophores. Conidia on germination produce mycelium. Sexual spores are called ascospores. which are produced endogenously in sac-like asci. These asci are arranged in different types of fruiting bodies called ascocarps. Some examples are Aspergillus, claviceps, and Neurospora. Neurospora is used extensively in biochemical and genetic work. Many members like morels and truffles are edible and are considered delicacies. So those were the ascomycetes which are commonly called as sac fungi. Remember the example: penicillium, yeast, Neurospora, aspergillus. These are the example for ascomycetes. Basidiomycetes, commonly known as mushrooms. So commonly these are called as mushrooms or bracket fungi. They grow in soil, on logs and tree stumps, and in living plant bodies as parasites. So mushrooms are coming under basidiomycetes, which are commonly called as bracket fungi. Example here, as I told, these are growing in soil, on logs and tree stumps, and in living plant bodies as parasites. Example is rust and smuts. The mycelium is branched and septate here. The asexual spores are generally not found, but vegetatively or vegetative reproduction by fragmentation is common. The sex organs are absent, but plasmogamy is brought about by fusion of two vegetative and somatic cells of different strains or genotypes. The resultant structure of dikaryotic, which ultimately gives rise to basidium. Karyogamy and meiosis takes place in basidium, producing 4 basidiospores. These basidiospores are exogenously produced on the basidium. The basidia are arranged in fruiting bodies called basidiocarps. Some common examples are agaricus, Eustylago, and Puccinia. This is the example for basidiomycetes, which are commonly called as bracket fungi. They are commonly called as bracket fungi or puffballs. And the last one are determoicetes. These are commonly called as imperfect fungi or fungi imperfecta. Why the name is given as? Because only the asexual or vegetative phases of these fungi are known. When the sexual forms of these fungi were discovered, they were moved into classes they rightly belonged to. It is also possible that the asexual and vegetative stage have been given one name and the sexual stage another. The deuteromycetes reproduce only by asexual spores known as conidia. The mycelium is septate and branched. Some members are saprophytes and parasites, while a large number of them are decomposers of litter and help in mineral cycling. Some examples are Alternaria, Trichoderma, etc. So these deuteromycetes are commonly called as imperfect fungi. Important question for 1 mark: why they are called as imperfect fungi or fungi imperfecta? Because only the asexual or vegetative phase of these fungi are known, and because of which they are called as imperfect fungi. So these were the classification of kingdom Mycota. Firstly, phycomycetes, ascomycetes, basidiomycetes, and deuteromycetes. So here are some examples being shown of those classes: Phycomycetes rhizopus, Ascomycetes neurospora, Basidiomycetes agaricus, and Deuteromycetes is fusarium. So today we will stop here, and in the next class we will begin with the next kingdom. Thank you.